Welcome back to eDiscovery Divided, a video series where we talk about completely opposing views by different people on the same topic. What we're talking about today is data that's technically accurate but practically not usable versus data that is usable but has been modified to make it usable. Is it okay thing to do or not okay? We're going to talk about that. Now, context where I am. I am in Bar Harbor, Maine, and I'm walking on this what's called a sandbar. This area gets completely flooded during high tide, and it's only open for a few hours. So right now is the low tide, so everyone making their way from the city of Bar Harbor to this island behind me. You do have to time your trip correctly, of course, because if the tide does come in, you are going to be stranded on the island for about 8 hours, which is no fun. So that is where we are, in case you were curious. Now let's get back to the topic. It's probably the easiest way to start explaining what I mean by technically correct but practically not useful data is, let's say we have constraints in our review system. For example, our SMF file format to review text messages may require a date when a text message was sent. But let's say we don't have a date. What do? Well, we need to make something up. It's literally a required field. So you could put data 1/1/1970 or something like that. You have to make up some data and substitute to meet the system's requirement. And that's kind of what we're talking about, whether doing things like that, and we'll take it further, is okay or not. All right, so let's get a little bit more specific. So one problem I have is when people convert Celebrate XML into RSMF file, and they ask like, okay, well, I just go here, I pick the XML file, and then I select destination folder, and what is this user information? And I say is like, well, you have to specify the phone owner of the phone, because that's the information that will be used in a from field for messages. And people go like, whoa. I don't want to add any extra information. I just want to convert this XML to RSMF. I don't want to alter it, right? I don't want to put anything in there that wasn't there before. I just want to convert it as is. The phone owner information isn't physically stored in the XML file. It's just how this file format works. You have to say who this data belongs to, and then that information will be used during the conversion process. Sometimes that information is stored, sometimes it's not. It's very inconsistent. But the point is, users have to supply additional metadata to the load file the way it was taken from forensic software. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with doing that. Another example is Oxygen. Sometimes Oxygen exports corrupt records in a really funny way. It takes all the names of participants and puts them into a from field, and it separates them with semicolons. And I'm sure we know that you cannot do something like that. You cannot have a multi-entry field in a from column, but this is just what the software does. It dumps all these weird records, formats data that's not compatible with pretty much anything, and someone has to go in and sort of clean it up. But no one really knows how to clean it up, because if you delete that information, well, that's kind of wrong. But if you leave it like that, well, that makes it not compatible, because you're not allowed to have multiple from values, right? Multiple people can't send the same message. So no matter how you look at it, this information is wrong, and you either have to exclude those records or put something else there instead of the from value. Let's do a couple more quick examples. Another one would be Teams, where attachments don't have any document extensions, or some do not. And if you have that, those images will not automatically show up in the RSMF viewer. So you have to scan the body of the attachment, figure out what extension that is, populate that in the field, and basically modify the file name so now that it works correctly. Another example is blank messages. A lot of forensic software, when it has deleted messages or something else, it just dumps out a bunch of blank records. And again, people ask like, what is this? What do we do with this? And there's really no good answer. The forensic people say like, well, it is what it is. This is what the data is. Give it to a client, and then the client opens it, and there's all these blank messages with nothing. So, in my opinion, this is something that'd be better off suppressed completely. You can just say, hey, there were this many blank messages, maybe even with this date ranges if you have them. But that's another example of what could happen is tons and tons of messages with blank bodies or even blank all metadata field. And this brings us to the question of today's video. Is it okay to manipulate data in order to make it compatible with review systems and make it in general usable for review? Or maybe the better question is, how far are you allowed to take your data manipulation? Or should you present your data as basically data dump and just show it to reviewer and saying, this is what it is and I'm not gonna touch it? Or is it okay to take lots of steps and clean it up and perfect it and make sure that it all looks good? Now, if you want to know my opinion on the matter, is I think it's okay to modify data as much as you want and to make it as whatever's necessary to make it reviewable, as long as you document your changes. If people know what you changed, what you modified, what values, maybe you did names normalization to reconcile weird names from different devices. In my opinion, all of that is okay, as long as you document what you did. All right, that's all I got for this video. Don't forget to follow on LinkedIn, subscribe on YouTube, and I will see you on another.